The Christmas story involves real people who lived in real places, like Bethlehem, where Dr. Craig Evans and I are coming to you from today. We're at a construction site today. A bit of a surprise, Dr. Evans.
Yes.
Tell us what we're seeing.
Well, this church has been in need of an overhaul and a refit for a long time, and I'm glad to see the work is underway. It needs a facelift, and inside and out, and it's going to look beautiful when the work is finished.
2,000 years ago, Caesar Augustus, who lived in Rome, 1,500 miles from here, issued a census. And because Joseph was a descendant of King David, he had to go to Bethlehem in Judea, David's ancient home. He traveled there from the village of Nazareth in Galilee. He took with him Mary, his fiancée, who was now obviously pregnant. And while they were there, the time came for her baby to be born. She gave birth to her first child, a son. She wrapped him snugly in strips of cloth and laid him in a manger because there was no lodging available for them. Was it in here? That manger, that cave, that stable? What's your take, Dr.
Well,
Evans?
you know, from a purely scholarly and historical point of view, we don't know. However, village memory sometimes shows remarkable continuity and accuracy. So I would say there's a chance, possibly, but even if it's not here, it would have been somewhere else nearby in this very important place, Bethlehem, because of its very rich and significant history.
Now, speaking of rich, we think of this birthplace as perhaps very dirty and smelly and about as humble as one could ever imagine. But, you know, we've seen and we will see more of these mangers, for example. I think of the sweet-smelling grain in a stone manger, for example. Maybe not as crude as we think of.
I think you're right, because we in the West and in the modern world think of a stable or a barn or something like that. And we think, oh my goodness, how rustic and how crude. But what we moderns don't know is that in this period of time, the family animals were always in your home. They were in a lower area adjacent to your house. So actually, the way I view it is this was an opportunity. Instead of being in a crowded inn and a public place, Mary and Joseph are in a place that's private. And it's outside the gawking gaze of others. So I think actually it's a better situation. So it's not a palace, that's true. It's not an illustrious place, but it's not a bad place given the fact, given the condition they're in out on the road and everything else. So I think we should shift our thinking a little bit about the manger, and where Jesus was born.
I love the scripture that says God sent his son in the fullness of time. Talk to us just briefly about the rightness of the timing of the long-awaited Messiah.
Yeah, you allude to something that Paul says, and I think it was a very good comment on his part. What does he mean by the fullness of time? God sent his son. Well, we could talk about it. This was a period of stability and peace, relatively speaking, for this period of time. It was the peace of Rome.
The Pax Romana.
That's right. And so the Roman peace, and in the Eastern Mediterranean world, there was linguistic unity. There were two major languages, the language of Jesus, which was Aramaic. Millions of people spoke it. But also the Greek language, which is the language of the New Testament. Millions spoke it. And so you had a linguistic unity, you had a political unity, there was no warfare, there was stability, not a bad time. And I think it was a time too where the Jewish people themselves, they were fed up with King Herod and his dynasty, and they were looking for a redeemer. They were looking for the fulfillment of Scripture. And I think that's why Paul says, rightly, in the fullness of time, that's when God sent his son.
Cannot sit here at this very meaningful entrance, which many years ago was shrunk to prevent horses galloping in here. It's a security shrinkage.
Yeah, you can see the outline of the original door, which was much larger, and now, there's no way an armed man, never mind a horse, can storm in here. And so this is for security. The
touching part to me is you can't get in that entrance without lowering yourself, without crouching, without taking a posture of humility as you approach what may be the birthplace of the King of the Jews and our King. And it's a poignant reminder of the way he told us to come as a little child. Closing thoughts, Professor?
Well, I agree with that because even if it isn't the place, it became a very important place, and every pilgrim that visited this place was thinking about the birth of Jesus. And so this then became an extremely important place in history and still is. And here we are 2,000 years later at this very place where literally kings and nobles, powerful people have come to this very spot to pay homage to the one who was born King of the Jews.
Well, we're headed for the hills just outside Bethlehem to identify for a few minutes with those who were the first to receive an invitation to come and see the baby.